All right, welcome everyone. So this is going to be our first Know Your Contract meeting, and we're going to go through a PowerPoint with the basics of unionism, our union history, some highlights of our collective bargaining agreement, and then membership. So I'm going to share the screen. I'm Caitlin Guiley. I am the Vice President for our chapter of United Faculty of Florida, Pascual Hernando State College. And I'm also the chief negotiator, and I'll be sharing the presentation with Caitlin Downing. I'm Caitlin with a C, she's Caitlin with a K. She's our president. All right. Nice. So this is our Know Your Contract meeting number 1. So we are a unionized college, and we have completed bargaining our first contract. This semester, we're going to vote on the ratification of our first collective bargaining agreement, or CBA. No, East.
East, okay. And that's your executive board.
Executive board, yep. Okay, so what is UFF-PHSC? This is our faculty union. We are a local chapter within United Faculty of Florida, which is the statewide higher ed union. There are about 30 chapters within UFF. They include all of our state universities, faculty, 4 graduate assistant unions at the state universities, and about half of our state colleges. So that's UFF. We're a chapter within that at our college. United Faculty of Florida is a chapter within the Florida Education Association, or FEA. This is the entire education union across the state of Florida. FEA is part of both national teachers unions, the NEA, or National Education Association, and AFT, or the American Federation of Teachers. As a chapter within UFF, we get bargaining support, organizing training, legal services, and so on. You know, when we first started organizing, none of us really knew anything about unions or collective bargaining or organizing. And so UFF statewide has helped with the actual bargaining as well as training. We also get our legal services are paid for by our parent unions. So we'll talk about the unfair labor practice, but those come from your dues money, but from the statewide.
Okay, so a little bit of history. We've been doing this for a long time. So in 2016, the college made unilateral changes about earned degree and longevity payments, changing from a raise to a one-time payment. So it used to be every year you got that amount more. And it
not every year, every 5 years, or when you earned a degree. The longevity were every 5 years you got a raise.
Went up.
Yeah, every 5 years you got an increase to your base salary. And if you earned a PhD or a master's degree, you got an increase to your base salary. The longevities were every 5 years, yeah.
Right, and now it's just a one-time thing. So
I see what you're saying. I'm sorry, a raise.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. I'm like, wait, am I misunderstanding this? Because I'm pretty sure I'm not. Okay. Yeah. So this was something that basically was recurring, and they changed it to a one-time payment, and that and other issues, a lack of morale is one, motivated faculty to basically contact UFF and form an organizing committee to start forming a union. We decided, hey, we need to push back because we lost so many things. So in 2018, our faculty voted to form a union, and we started bargaining our first contract in 2019. I want to say February. Yep. And we finished our bargaining around 2020, with a few MOUs in between, or afterwards, but the bulk of the contract was basically done in 2020.
Okay. Okay. So we said we form a union. What does that mean? A union is a legally recognized organization of workers. And so in order to have a union at a workplace, it has to be formed. So we had the vote in 2018. When a workplace is unionized, that means that the union will bargain with the employer to create a CBA contract or collective bargaining agreement. Once a workplace is unionized, there's no more individual negotiations about anything. So everything, all the terms and conditions of employment, such as salary, benefits, working conditions, must be agreed upon between the union and the employer. And under the law, the union and the employer are equal. So there's not like the administration is telling what the faculty what to do. We're going to bargain now. We're on a level playing field as a union. This also means that the administration can't make any unilateral changes. So if the administration wants to make any changes to our working conditions, salary, health insurance, evaluations, anything like that, if they want to make a change, they have to bring it to the union, and the union has to agree to that. So that is not, there's no more unilateral changes about our working conditions coming from the administration.
Okay, so unions in Florida are kind of interesting. So all public sector employees, which are the state, the county, the city employees, teachers, firefighters, police, college and university employees, and all like the state workers, have a right to collective bargaining under our state constitution, which is actually pretty progressive for Florida. However, recent legislation is attempting to undermine our union rights in so many ways. I don't know. We don't really want to get into all the Senate bills. No, it's more just something that we have to constantly try to fight back against.
And the biggest issue now is the payroll deduction and the membership, which we'll get to at the end.
Yeah.
So we formed our union in 2018. We started bargaining in 2019. We actually had a fairly smooth process of getting our first collective bargaining, all the tentative agreements in place. So a tentative agreement is when the language between the union and the administration is agreed upon, both parties sign, and then those tentative agreements will go into the whole collective bargaining agreement or contract. Those are not enforceable until it's ratified. We have had some MOUs or memoranda of understanding, which are like mini contracts. But so we got through all the policies and procedures in the summer of 2020, but we got stuck on the discipline article. So the discipline procedure is what happens when a faculty member is accused of wrongdoing. So this would be like, you might have a written reprimand, or verbal warning, written reprimand, and so on, suspension, something like that. So it's a clear procedure that if you're accused of something wrong, you have a policy that says what's happening, including that termination would only be for just cause. So that means you can only get fired for something. There's kind of a whole list of things that would be just cause. So basically what you did was bad, you knew it was bad, there was fair process, and so on. So the administration refused to have any discipline article in our
Also
collective bargaining agreement.
Huh? And also progressive discipline.
Yeah, so progressive discipline is like verbal warning, written reprimand, and so on.
In other words, it goes up. It doesn't just, okay, you're fired, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
and there's a process. Yeah. So the administration didn't want to have any discipline article in our collective bargaining agreement. So they wanted to rely on the IMM that we have, and then also any state laws about termination. This has been a trend across different state colleges in Florida that have newly formed unions. So it really wasn't, in my opinion, about anything at PEHSC. It was about a larger picture of union rights for public employees in Florida, particularly at state colleges. So because the administration would not agree to having any discipline article, and we were unwilling to agree to that, we declared impasse.
Which is basically when the two parties can't agree and there's nothing else to be done, like negotiations have broken down and then it moves forward. Well, oh, I'm sorry, you did that. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't realize that was the next screen. Well, yeah, that's my screen anyway. So it's basically when the parties can't reach agreement, we declare impasse. In Florida, and I don't understand this, why this is, but the Board of Trustees makes the final decision regarding impasse, which makes no sense because often it's against them in the first place. But a special magistrate is an independent, neutral third party who can make a recommendation to the board. So they're kind of like, I'm going to say sort of like a judge, but it's not binding. All they can do is recommend.
Okay.
I don't know if you did this on the next.
Yeah. So the special magistrate stated that the discipline article having that in our contract was in the best interest of the taxpayer. But like Caitlin said, in Florida, the body that makes the final decision in impasse is the Board of Trustees. So the special magistrate makes a recommendation, but like you said, it's not binding. So at the impasse hearing, there were some problems. The board ended up ruling in favor of the administration and not having a discipline article in our contract, but there were some issues, legal issues that happened there. So one is the same lawyer representing the college in negotiations, Brian Koji, who's an outside attorney, was also advising the board, which we argue was a kind of a conflict of interest or a violation of the strict duty of fairness. The board also made some pretty blatant anti-union comments, including John Mitten, our current chair of the Board of Trustees, said, quote, "I am diametrically opposed to public sector unions on a fundamental level." And so we ended up filing an unfair labor practice about that, saying that they were not acting impartially, which they are required by law.
So what is an unfair labor practice? Henceforward called a ULP. So a ULP means that a party has violated labor law, like state labor law, in some way or other. The ULP will go before PERC, which is the Public Employee Relations Committee, and they're sort of the ruling board for this, to make a ruling and decide on any remedy that they may have.
Okay, so we actually filed 2 unfair labor practices. The first one had to do with the lawyer and the anti-union comments, and we were arguing that the board was not acting impartially and they violated the requirement for a strict duty of fairness. The second unfair labor practice was kind of a bigger picture, saying that a public sector collective bargaining agreement must have a discipline article because not having one is detrimental to the collective bargaining process, which we are constitutionally awarded. So in Florida, we have that state constitution language saying that public employees have a right to collective bargaining, and without a discipline article, that's a major issue in collective bargaining. So this has gone through a whole process. This has been a couple of years now. We decided to file the unfair labor practices kind of for 2 things. The first one was to really assert the right that we are a union and we must be respected as a union. So just when we filed the unfair labor practice against the board for the comments, we did notice a difference in bargaining. So we did feel like after we filed the unfair labor practice, there was more of a negotiation process.
It took us more seriously.
Yeah, we just felt like it was more that even playing field, that they just took the process more seriously. So that was the one goal. The other thing for the unfair labor practice number 2 was to basically establish a precedent for all public sector unions in Florida, saying that you must have a discipline article. So this was kind of a bigger picture kind of win for everybody if we were to win this second unfair labor practice. So this has been through a whole process. First, they were both rejected by the hearing officers, and then prior to PERC, and then PERC rejected both of them. Now we're in the appeals process. We just got an update on that like 2 minutes ago. So we're kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do moving forward with the unfair labor practices. But we are going to start the ratification process next month, or this month, basically. So we're going to vote on our collective bargaining agreement.
We're kind of hoping that they'll make a decision on the ULPs in the meantime. And
yeah, we're not sure what's going to happen with that yet. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen. So
yeah, the lawyers are working on that. So what is a collective bargaining agreement? Well, your CBA is a legally binding contract. It is obviously negotiated by both parties equally, and therefore agreed by both parties. So if either party violates the contract, a grievance can be filed and a neutral arbitrator will make a judgment. And I believe that comes from PERC.
No, the arbitrator is totally, the arbitrator. So if you file a grievance, the arbitrator is not belonging to either party. They're completely neutral. They're not part of PERC, but their judgment will be binding, unlike the special magistrate for impasse. So let's say, for instance, at HCC, they had a class action grievance where they argued that the administration was not giving their step increases that they had agreed to, and the arbitrator agreed with the union, and now they're getting the raises that they were promised. So that judgment will be binding, and it will by law. And so the arbitrator makes the decision, which is not part of the union or the board of trustees or the administration.
And I also say that a grievance has a process. In other
Yes.
words, normally it goes up the chain, and often it never needs to go to a third party arbitrator. Often it is handled internally due to the contract. Somebody basically decides for the grievance one way or the other, and it doesn't have to go up the chain, but that's the final say. So often there's something that's dealt with in-house. It's rare that it gets to arbitration.
Right. So we have a whole grievance article, and we can talk about it at either the
Whole
next
process.
Yeah, whole process. But one key thing is we'll have this contract, and if the administration doesn't follow it, we can say, hey, this is what it says. You need to follow the contract. And
we can enforce it.
exactly. So we can enforce that contract. So it might be as simple as, hey, this is what it says. And then you say, oh, okay, we'll fix it. Or, hey, this is what it says, and it has to go escalate up to the arbitrator. But the difference between having a union and not having a union is, before the union, if the administration said, oh, we're not following the IMM, there was nothing we could do. So we have these internal management memoranda, they have all our policies, but there was no way to enforce those policies. In contrast, when we have a collective bargaining agreement in place, that is an actual contract and both parties must follow it. So if the administration doesn't follow the CBA, there are consequences and ways to enforce those policies.
I've never seen it go the other way, where the
It isn't, yeah.
administration grieves something from, I'm just letting you know, I've never seen
But
it
in
go the other
principle,
way.
it is an agreement.
Usually, theoretically they could, I suppose, but in reality, it's usually us grieving something they did. So, okay, supremacy. Oh, I'm sorry, that's yours. My bad.
Oh, yeah, I don't know where I'm, but yeah, supremacy and severability. So this is just basically the collective bargaining agreement is a contract, but if it violates kind of state law, for instance, the payroll deduction, the law takes precedence or supremacy or supersedes the CBA. But
federal law too.
What?
Obviously. I said federal law too. Obviously.
Yeah, so any kind of law, yeah. But if the collective bargaining agreement and the IMM or the board rule are in conflict, then the collective bargaining agreement wins. So if there's any kind of board rule change or IMM change that the union does not agree to through bargaining, it doesn't count. Another point is that strikes are illegal for public sector employees in Florida. That happened after the teacher strike in 1968, which is how we actually got collective bargaining agreement or collective bargaining for public sector unions. So, but that doesn't mean we can't build power in other ways, but that's just something to be aware of.
Okay, so the major articles in the CBA cover these things: compensation and benefits. So basically what you're getting paid and all the benefits that go along with it, your health care, your, dental, vision, all of that. Working conditions, that covers everything from like how long your work week is, how many hours you have to be on campus, how many hours you have to do for office hours, your scheduling, what you have for load, how many students make up a class, make up load, etc.
One point, Caitlin, separate is class size is
a manager, right?
Yeah, class size, we can't bargain class size, for the record, but that's a separate issue.
We can't, but it is something that is determined. That's part of your working conditions, but you're right, we can't bargain that. And then your program directors or chairs, and anything along those lines. It covers almost most of what we do. Also continuing contract, the process, the procedure, how long it takes, everything having to do with how you get it, how you don't get it, what happens if you don't get it, etc. Evaluations, And we've actually made some great changes to evaluations over the time of bargaining, but basically how we are evaluated, whether or not we can evaluate our superiors, still working on that one. But basically like what's involved in the evaluation, what is being evaluated, how is it assessed, etc. When do they have to tell us? How long do how much notice do we get? Yeah. Reduction in force is basically layoffs if something happened and they needed to lay people off for like say a program doesn't have enough students or something. Honestly, we've never actually laid people off other than like closing a program. So we've never actually like just gotten rid of people. Usually we try to move people around and find somewhere for them. But basically this entails who gets laid off based on what, when they have a right to recall, if they have a right to recall, how long will that right to recall last? In other words, where they can call them up and say, hey, we have a job for you. We come back to work. So basically everything having to do with potential layoffs and a reduction in force. And then of course, the grievance procedure. And that literally has everything from timelines to when you have to file the grievance after the incident, how long you have until you can expect a response from, like, when does administration have to respond? When does the paperwork have to be filed? Basically all the nitty gritty of it, as well as what you can grieve, the process of where it goes in progression. So who is the first one up the chain and the chain of grievance, all the way up to arbitration. And so it pretty much governs the whole grievance process.
Okay. All right. So we have this collective bargaining agreement. We have tentatively agreed upon all of the articles, and we got before we went to impasse. Now, in order for that CBA to be enforceable, in order to have the grievance process and everything in place, we have to ratify it. And that means that both the union and the board have voted that this is what they want. For the union side, all faculty in our bargaining unit is eligible to vote yes or no. So you do not need to be a union member in order to vote on ratification. We're going to vote by mail. So you will get a ballot mailed to your home address, and then you will return the ballot secretly, yes or no, just like we have for our MOUs for the raises and so on. The full collective bargaining agreement we'll have posted on the UFF-PHSC website. We'll also email it out. We're not going to print it because it's pretty long. We're in the middle of finalizing the CBA ratification copy because there's been some MOUs since we compiled it in 2020. So that is almost done, just some particulars to finish, and then everyone will be able to look through that, and we'll also have the other know your contract meetings where we'll go through the details of it. So our bargaining unit is all full-time faculty except for welding, fire science, and law enforcement. The carving out of the welding, fire science, and law enforcement was a decision by the administration back when we were voting, and we didn't argue it at that time. But if welding, fire science, and law enforcement do want to be part of the union, that is something we could bring forth to PERC at some point. But right now they are not part of our union, and the collective bargaining agreement would not apply to them.
Okay, so for union membership, in order to be a member of the union, you must pay dues. Sorry, but they're not that bad. UFF dues are 1% of your base salary, and they're deducted the day after every paycheck. So you don't really notice it, honestly. Union members have rights to representation. So in other words, we have legal, I guess I'm going to say we have a legal team that if you needed representation, UFF or us under UFF would have that opportunity to basically provide that for you, which is really great because, as we all know, lawyers are expensive.
Also, if I can cut in, so if you do file a grievance, anyone can file a grievance. So if the collective bargaining agreement, they didn't follow a procedure, anyone can file a grievance. But if you're a union member, the union will help you through that process. If you're not a union member, you can just enforce the contract individually. Also, if you feel a meeting might lead to disciplinary action, you can ask for your Weingarten rights, which means a union representative will come with you.
Make sure
And
that they're
that's what,
following due process.
yeah, follow due
Make sure
process.
they're that they're
Mhm.
basically like not stepping on your rights through the
Yep.
process.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so because of the new legislation that has outlawed payroll deduction, dues must now directly be paid to FEA. So we have e-dues to do that. New legislation requires now a 60% membership density to remain a certified union. So we need 60% of our faculty members in the bargaining unit to be union members come the end of March, or we will be decertified as a union, and we will no longer be a union, and we will, I mean, the CBA will be null and void, and the whole thing will just go right out the window. So it is really, really, really important that we increase our membership to, I would like to see 65% to give us a buffer, just in case, because people quit, people retire, you know, I'd like to see a buffer. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Haley,
if-
may I ask what's the percentage right now of membership?
we'll get to that in a moment.
We have a
I'm
slide.
sorry, I
We have a
interrupted,
slide
but I
for
was
the
kind of
question.
curious. I'm sorry.
It's
Thank you. I
okay.
didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
You're
Yeah.
fine. Like, we have a slide
Thank
for
you.
that. Don't worry.
So the 1% of your base salary goes to different organizations that are going to help our chapter. So it's going to go to statewide UFF, and then Florida Education Association, National Education Association, American Federation of Teachers, those parent organizations of our union, as well as the AFL-CIO, which is the American Federation of Labor Council of Industrial Organizations. It's like
Something
a,
like that.
yeah, a union of unions. So this includes the painters and the plumbers and the
Teamsters,
actors and everybody. Those are part of the AFL-CIO, and that a very small portion of your dues, like less than $10, goes to the AFL-CIO, but they deal with dealing with lawmakers legislation, but that's a small portion. But those other organizations are then to support our bargaining and union activities.
And
So
we
for
do-
instance, Allison, who's on the call, is our service unit director from United Faculty of Florida. So our statewide higher ed union has seven service unit directors that assist us in all of our union work. When we wrote our first collective bargaining agreement, Graham Picklesheimer was our service unit director, and he met with us every week for months to develop what we were going to propose to the administration. Every time we were bargaining, he was there because we didn't have any knowledge at that time.
He wrote most of the language too.
Yeah, he did. He was
Like, he
huge.
drafted it. He was amazing.
Yeah, he's since moved out of state, but we have Allison now, who's also
Oh,
amazing.
he's at HCC. I thought he was. At
No,
HCC.
he's in Portland now. So yeah.
Oh.
So that local chapter help from FEA. Then there's also, or UFF, then FEA also pays, does like payroll for like the union workers, and they help with policy advocacy in Tallahassee. And so all of this helps our union work at the chapter level. And also it kind of helps with bigger picture in terms of developing policy for education and unions at the state and national level.
So how can you get involved? You knew it was coming. Okay, obviously the first thing is join the union. If I'm assuming, at this point, I'm pretty sure everybody in here is a union member. Oh, no. Okay, join the union. Talk to your colleagues about joining the union, about the union in general. Plant the seed, even if you don't want to actually have that conversation, just plant the seed. And yeah, become a steward. I don't know what you mean by that, Caitlin.
Oh, we're gonna have some kind of system, like maybe campus or by department, of people who are representatives of the union that can talk to other faculty, or kind of an organizing committee to talk about e-dues.
Okay, so sort of like a union rep.
Yeah, union rep. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and also with talking to your colleagues, you don't have to like push membership or anything. I think my favorite way to talk about the union with my colleagues is just to say, what are your thoughts on the union? What do you think about what's going on with the union? And just bringing it up, and not, you don't have to like say anything one way or another, but just having that conversation will help connect us with our colleagues and kind of get more conversations going.
And it plants the seed of like, hey, you know, you don't have to say like you should. It's just more, hey, think about it. Like there it is. And obviously participate in bargaining. And this doesn't mean that you have to speak at the table. I mean, even though the table at this point is Zoom, it really just means everything from, okay, helping us research stuff, because sometimes we need to look things up and see like what other colleges are doing, maybe look at some language, whatever. It could be just being there, honestly, just to show support. Ideas, things from your department that you want to see in bargaining. Honestly, like any participation is good participation in our book.
So, you know, if there's something going on in accounting that we don't know about, we can't help you, but communicating with your bargaining team saying, hey, we're having this issue, or we'd like to see a different policy, you can bring that to the bargaining team or, you know, any of us and talk about those issues, and then we can help address those issues at the bargaining table. But if we don't know what's going on, you know, we can't do that. So
yeah, that's how we just increased the SME stipend. Was someone just answered an email and said, hey, by the way, this is a really low stipend and it's a lot of work, and could we do something about that? And I'm like, okay, I'll bring it forth. And we did, and yeah, but we have to know about it. And I hate to say we try, but we can't be everywhere and, you know everything. And it helps if you tell us.
Yeah, we do surveys and everything like that, but if there's something, you can always communicate with us. Okay, so how do you join? If you were previously a member, which I don't think anyone was here yet, you would have gotten an email from Central Membership System at floridaea.org that says I'm sticking with my union, that would have a personalized link for people that were members before July. But if you're joining for the first time, you're going to go to our union website, and there's a click here to join now, and that will take you to a form that you'll fill out, and then you'll be able to sign up for eDues. We can have a separate eDues conversation either after this or another time about the particulars of eDues. But eDues are going to be an electronic bank transfer from your bank account. And it is very secure. It's the same technology as like Venmo or something like that. That's, you'll get the payroll or you get the eDues deduction the day after our paycheck. So every 2 weeks. So it just follows our paychecks. You get the 1% of your base salary coming out of your bank account in a very secure way.
And if you do join before October 1st, it'll be your old salary. They're switching over to the new salary after October 1st. So don't freak out if it's smaller than you think it'll be. Just give it a couple weeks and it should reflect your new salary.
Yeah, I'll do membership if you want, Caitlin. So our bargaining unit is 128 faculty, maybe. There seems to be some problems with the record, but right somewhere around that. We had previously 61 members before the payroll deduction was lost in July. That has also been from some turnover, people retiring and so on. Right now we have 33 out of the 128 people are actually signed up on eDues. That's 26% of our bargaining unit is members. If we don't take that 33 and get it up to 60% of 128, we'll lose our union. That's it. The collective bargaining agreement will not count for anything. We'll lose status quo, which means that we have status quo now, which means the administration can't make changes unless they bargain with us. That's gone. The administration can make any change they want. At St. Pete College a few years ago, when COVID started, their administration were going to give faculty a 6% pay cut, and they could do that. And so the St. Pete College faculty very quickly collected cards to call for a vote for a union, which implemented status quo, and they formed a union and they prevented that pay cut. So if we don't have a union, we have no voice. They can do anything they want. So we need to get to that 60% membership, and that will be audited in March. So we have that much time to get to 60, preferably, like you said, Caitlin, 65% membership.
I would like a buffer.
Yes.
Because, because basically it goes to PERC and they have to basically recertify us. So I don't want there to be wiggle room. Like, I don't want it to be like two people difference or whatever. I want a buffer. So, okay. How has our union helped faculty? We've done so much in this short amount of time that we've been unionized. If you remember before the union, our dry spell of 8 years without a raise. So let's start with raises. Our last year's raise was a 5% across the board permanent raise with a 2% non-recurring bonus payment. Our 2022, they were individualized, but they were meant to fix wage compression. So the average was around 5.6%, I believe was the average. And there was a little bit, but everyone got at least $1,000, even if you were already like pretty much maxed out. And so nobody went away with nothing. In 2021, we had a 5.5% across the board raise as well. So an average of about a 17% raise in the last 3 years. So yeah, I know I liked it. I put a new roof on my house and a new air conditioning unit. So increases to starting salaries and stipends to program directors. We've increased a lot of those stipends. Department chairs and SMEs, the online course developer. We've also prevented further increases to health insurance.
Can I chime in on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so if you remember, we had major changes to our health insurance last year. So there's a bunch of different issues with health insurance. So we are, as community colleges or state colleges in Florida, we're part of the Florida Community College Risk Management Consortium. So our health insurance comes from that, or some state colleges negotiate their own health insurance premiums and plans with whatever healthcare. All of the other state employees in Florida are part of the state health insurance group, and it's much better than what is offered through the Community College Risk Management Consortium. So that is a separate issue that we're trying to work through the legislature. I know the Florida College or the presidents are also trying to do that, but that requires a legislative change in order to get our state colleges on the state group health insurance. So that's kind of a constraint we're in right now. Last year,
goal. It's a long-term goal.
Long-term goal, but this is what we're working with right now. Right. So last year, the consortium changed the health insurance plans, just the available plans, which we didn't really have any, Pasco Hernando State College really had very little control over that. So the available plans changed, and then they ended up increasing the out-of-pocket cost to faculty. This happened last September, and then August, September, and then we had the open enrollment in October. The administration did not reach out to the union or even at all about this. So in October, during open enrollment, we sent a cease and desist letter saying you can't do this without bargaining. It kind of went through, but then in last spring, we had a bargaining session and said, look, you can't change our health insurance costs without bargaining. Okay, it didn't actually change what happened, but we asserted that right, that these are things that need to be bargained with our union. In September, the Brian Koji, their outside attorney, reached out to us and said, hey, there's some changes in cost for the plans. The plans are the same, but the cost is increasing to the college. And they sent a spreadsheet with different cost scenarios. We replied back and said, if you're going to change the cost, you have to bargain that with us. And then later we got an email saying there was no change to our costs. So the asserting that right, that those changes to your out-of-pocket payment meant that we didn't have an increase this year. We may have not had an increase anyway, but just having that assertion, if you're going to do this, you have to bargain with us. Now we don't have an increase in healthcare costs. It's still painful from what it was before, but that has caused any increased hurt or prevented any increased hurt.
Yeah, this was a 5% increase to the college that the college is absorbing because of this.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, policy wins. So we've clarified the continuing contract procedure. It's similar to what it was prior to collective bargaining, but it was very confusing to many faculty. So the actual procedure is clearer now.
In a timeline.
In
a
the
much
timeline,
clearer
yep.
timeline.
We have a better representation on college committees, including like the faculty evaluation form was half faculty on that committee. We also have a committee being formed this semester to look at load calculations and multipliers for clinicals and labs. So we need people to be on that committee to talk about possibly getting a contact hour is a contact hour. So for instance, as biology faculty, I teach 100 or an hour and 40 minutes is a lab, an hour and 40 minutes. But I get paid for 1.5 credits, which is an hour and 20 or an hour and 15 minutes. So 75 versus 100. So every time I teach a biology lab, I'm working for 25 minutes for free. So we're addressing that issue in a committee to look at the costs and then take that to bargaining. We also have better representation on the safety committee. And a couple
In the
years
healthcare
ago,
committee, the benefits committee.
yep. And so a couple years ago, the administration wanted to eliminate the department chairs for arts and sciences and hire a new administrator, but we collected 100 signatures and prevented that from happening. So now those still exist.
Yes. So how has our union helped our college community? Excuse me. Okay. We've created an avenue for effective dialogue between faculty and administration, which we honestly didn't have before. It was kind of catch as catch can, which helps our students and our whole community, as well as the entire college. We've changed the board rule to allow for public comment. Previously, the board rule actually violated that law and didn't allow for public comment. And so now they have to do that.
Yeah, so
Do-
previously you had to have permission from the college president in order to speak at a board meeting, but now anyone can speak as long as they say 15 minutes before they're going to speak. So that benefited faculty, but students have taken advantage of that as well. If you've been here,
SGA. I said SGA have addressed the board on numerous occasions for various things and been successful.
exactly. So if you were here before our union, you know, just now we actually have better communication with each other as well and with the administration. And there's all kinds of just little things that helps. So it's been really, it's just improved our college to have this better communication between faculty and among faculty and between the administration and faculty.
I'm also going to argue that it helped morale a lot. I do
Yeah.
think morale has improved a lot since we unionized and since we've been making the strides that we have.
So going along with that, when you stand alone, you beg. When you stand together, you bargain. And there's been lots of wins that we have had at the bargaining table that people tried for years and couldn't get changed because they were begging. And now as a union, we are legally recognized. We have to be recognized as a negotiating agent, and we've gotten lots of wins for faculty. So it's exciting. So now we're going to have our collective bargaining agreement in place, hopefully, and get those changes implemented. All right. And now I'm going to stop
more.
recording.
I'm like, and hopefully more.
Next
Next step, get rid of the multipliers.
exactly.